really just want to jump into the program and introduce to you our very first speaker. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge there's controversy around this young person who's going to come and share some words about Tigray and the Tigray that we want. I think that as TEGARU, we're learning a lesson that while we are one people, we have many voices and we have many different approaches in terms of like how do we fix this crisis in Tigray. And so this is someone who has done a lot of work in terms of, with aid and worked with different agencies. I'm going to actually read his bio so you know more about him. But I just want to encourage us to make space for people, even if we don't necessarily agree with their approach or their solution. We can have different opinions and still like each other. I think that's really important. I think that's a lesson that we're learning in Tigray. So this is not political, by the way. He's not here to give a political conversation. It really is a conversation around, as a diaspora and as TEGARU, how do we continue building in all the ways that we build. So Yohannes Mezgebe. Yohannes has 20 years of experience spanning from African youth, civil society, community leadership, and he's a founder of nonprofit public interest organizations and academic institutions. He's worked with the African Union Commissioner Headquarters in Ethiopia in different capacities, including manager of the service delivery, coordinator of political affairs, and expert at the Bureau of the chairperson. During his time at the African Union, he initiated and coordinated the first ever African Union presidential debate in 2016, which was transmitted live throughout Africa in 4 languages. He also helped to develop the Agenda 2063, which is Africa's blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. Yohannes has planned, developed, and facilitated events, conferences, and other forums with the African Union, the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and the European Union, country embassies, international organizations, and other entities. And today, Yohannes' topic is The Tigray We Want, Where Are the Eagles? Welcome, Yohannes.
Thank you, Melita, for the invitation to be here at this historic event. And I would like also to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for the warm welcome provided to me upon my arrival. I can see now why everybody wants to move to Denver. You guys have like the most amazing leadership in Denver. Today, I think I would like to speak to you about, for me, the most important topic on Tigray, and that is, as TEGARU, where would we want to be, let's say, by 2060? What is our agenda? What is our vision, mission? And how do we create the Tigray we all want? In order for me to talk about where to go as Tigray for the next, let's say, 34 years, we also need to look into where have we come from and where we are now, and why are we where we are now. I think this is like the most important topic. I understand some people want to talk about what's happening some part of Tigray. Yes, I understand there is some urgent and important matters to be addressed too. But when I talk of 34 years from now, for the vision of Tigray, it's also important to note that it's going to be divided into phases. The first phase would be the short term, let's say in the coming 2 years. What are the most important and urgent things that we need to be doing as TEGARU collectively? And then the midterm, and then the long term. But we really need to have a long-term vision as TEGARU. So that's what we're going to discuss. So let me start with where are we now? It's also important to discuss the different developments, like the global developments, the continental developments, regional developments throughout the world, because the development that happens globally shapes the current and future political and security dynamics in Tigray. So whatever we're trying to do about the vision of Tigray for the next 34 years, it's important to look into that framework, the global perspective, regional perspective. Now, globally speaking, I'm not going to get into details, but it looks like we're moving from old order into a new order, even though we don't seem to know where we're heading as a global community. But it looks like there are a lot of forces, like the America on one side, the BRICS, Russians. So there's a lot of forces trying to figure out what to do. But it looks like we do not have a roadmap. So this is what it would look like if we do not have a vision. So I think it's very important, these major powers globally, to sit down and figure out where, as a global community, we should be heading to. Now, back to Africa. For many years, as we all know, that the Europeans had an agenda for Africa. The Americans, the Russians, the Chinese have always had an agenda for Africa, but Africa never had an agenda for Africa. But it's only in 2013, for the first time, that we developed an agenda for 50 years. We called it Africa Agenda 2063. So it's something to have an agenda, but the problem is we're not implementing it. So it doesn't mean anything if you do not implement the agenda that we have. Again, I'm not going to get into details, but at least it's good to have an agenda, but we really need to also implement the agenda that we have. Now, regionally speaking, Horn of Africa. Horn of Africa, the most unstable region globally. I myself have been to Gaza, but Horn of Africa, I would still consider it the most unstable region globally. So it is in our interest to look into, as TEGARU, what happens in the Horn of Africa, which is now occupied by the Gulf states. And Africa is, African countries, especially the Horn of African countries, are being used as proxies for these actors. Now, I want to talk about where we are as TEGARU internally. I've jotted down a few things. I think it's very, very important internally to understand that the worst things can happen to any human beings happened to the people of Tigray. Though I believe that the best thing can happen to people would also happen in Tigray at some point. But what is that the best thing that we really want to have? Who is going to do it? But it's also important to note that it is impossible to overstate the searing memories of the accusations, the denunciations, the castigations, the humiliations we TEGARU as TEGARUs faced over the last few years. To understand Tigrayan, one must understand genocide. Many Tigrayans survived hell, and what had not killed them made them strong. For me, what enabled TEGARU to survive is a vision of the future, a sense of meaning about a work yet to do and a contribution yet to make. But the unfortunate truth where we are right now is there's lack of leadership, lack of common vision and shared agenda, lack of commitment to organize ourselves and execute around our priorities, lack of communicating and clarifying, defining roles and goals to the different stakeholders, or even ambiguous, confusing, or violating expectations, scarcity mindset instead of abundance, the disease of not listening to one another, which means to understand the other person from their frame of reference. Because we do not have a common purpose as TEGARU and value system, the differences, whether it is zonal differences, political difference, whatever difference that we have between and amongst ourselves is resulting in chaos, negative energy, and counterproductive. There's a lot of we don't even forgive ourselves, we're building a lot of gadgets. Remember, it is not the snake that bites us that does serious harm to us. It is chasing that snake drives the poison into our heart. And I wonder what we are doing back home. So this is where we are. For me, we are living like in a minefield So every word that we use, every move that we make, we just have to be careful. But I think the second topic that I want to talk is about what is our collective vision. I call it Tigray Agenda 2060 for the next 34 years. But the question is, what is the goal we want to achieve, the dream we want to fulfill, the ideals we want to capture, and the stars we want to reach as TEGARU. So this is a challenge, because at the end of the day, I want to live with some call to action to the best and brightest diaspora leaders. Even if it seems impossible, envisioning for the next 34 years about Tigray, but I think it is important that we have some sort of direction, passion, and meaning about the future of Tigray. Now, whatever the vision that we set up will be our blueprint and master plan for transforming Tigray into the regional powerhouse in the near future. It should also, the vision also, the framework also should be a framework for socio-economic transformation over the next 34 years. It should be our strategic framework that aims to deliver on its goal for our self-determination, freedom, and collective prosperity. And the vision that we set out should serve as a roadmap for inclusive economic growth, people-driven development, good governance, human rights, cultural identity, and regional influence. To achieve this vision, as I said, we really have to divide it into 3 phases, 2026 up to 2028. On the next 2 years, what must be doing collectively as TEGARU? What are the most important and urgent matters? The middle term, 28 to 42, and the long term, 2042 to 2060. Now, I have listed few things that can be like a pillar for the vision, like a stable and peaceful Tigray, a high standard of living, quality of life, well-being of TEGARU, well-educated TEGARU, skill revolution underpinned by science, technology, innovation, healthy and well-nourished TEGARU, transformed economies, modern agriculture for increased productivity and production, modern infrastructure, equality, justice, unity, pluralism, freedom, democracy, rule of law, capable institutions, transformative leadership, and Tigray as a major partner in global affairs and peaceful coexistence. I think this vision, I would like to challenge even the center, could be an opportunity to exercise on this vision. Now, I don't have much more time, but I just want to end like with the following 4 call to action. Number 1, it is responsibility, leadership, management, and creative cooperative. On the responsibility, I think it's important to be aware that we're the leaders, we're the architect, and the programmers. On the leadership, the best way to predict Tigray is to create it. So if we are the leaders, if we are the designers, the architects, the programmers, then we have to write the program. We have to create it. We have to envision. Everything is created twice. First, we create it mentally, this house, the cars, and everything in the world that we see is created twice. Mentally, we create it, and then physically, we build it. So as we are creating Tigray mentally, so I think there is a need that to, as the carpenter's rule, measure twice and cut once. So to really work together, to make sure that we're creating it carefully. Now, the management, like I said, I talked about the responsibility, the leadership, the responsibility about the awareness. As the leaders, the leadership is about executing and writing the program, and the management. The thing that I like about the leadership and the leadership talks about doing the right things, and the management talks about doing things right. So organizing ourselves on the priorities, because we're just fighting a lot on a lot of things that is not really important for us right now. So, and the creative cooperation, I think it's very important, like, to recognize people have their own world, their own perspective about the reality on Tigray. There's a lot of differences. We really need to celebrate the differences, and we really need to work as TEGARU to develop and then achieve our Tigray. So I'm sorry, Simon, for the time that I have taken, but thank you again very much for the opportunity you've given me.